And hello, everyone. Yes. So, welcome to this nice. What day is it today? It's Wednesday. Welcome to the Wednesday evening, guys. A very mixed day, I gotta say. A very, very mixed day. Because obviously, we all are extremely worried for the warriors of Ukraine that are fighting at Solidar. Everyone is extremely, extremely passionate because I gotta say, even the experts are going kind of crazy about just how intense the fighting is. And oh, Lisa, thanks, thanks, Lisa. All the thanks. Let's give a hand, by the way, for the mods for Ali, just to support because it's really good what she's doing. So please, it's even better than what I'm doing. But yes, so we are extremely, how would you say, worried about the situation at the front lines at the one side. On the other hand, today we got a lot of really good news, a lot of good news because we got confirmation that the tanks are coming to Ukraine. Now, this is major, and we're definitely going to talk about this. But before we do talk about tanks, I would like to maybe, because it's going to be a quick stream, just 1 hour, I don't really have a lot of time. But I would love to first start this off to talk with you guys and well, maybe about everything besides the tanks. That's going to be part of the kind of conversation just a little bit later. But if you have any kind of quick questions, I'm pretty sure you want to know what's about Solidar or whatnot. So ask them right away. Let's maybe take these first 15 minutes to talk about things with each other. Can you list the songs played in the intro? Yes. So as with all my streams, the songs first and foremost are going to be in the description. Maybe I should start doing the, how do you say? I should start doing it in advance and putting the songs in the description right away. But they will be in the description. How do you say? After the. The first one was Hey Sokoly. It was the. This is the Hey Sokoly, or Hey Sokoly. It's the Polish national traditional folk song. It's very nice, very very nice. Then the next one was like the Wing Hussars Arrive, which is a Polish-Lithuanian folk song. And I'm sharing the links right now. And the third one was a Ukrainian. It was actually quite old. And if I'm not wrong, this was the song that actually came out before this full-scale invasion. This was, I think, even the song that came out after 2014. But I'm not sure. Maybe not. No, I'm looking at the date. No, it was March 2014. Okay, never mind. No, this song came out after the invasion. My bad. But yes, so let's spend these 15 minutes. Write me where you're from for sure. Ukrainian version of Hey Sokoly. Is there even a Ukrainian version of Hey Sokoly? I'm not sure, but it's a traditionally sang in Polish. I really like the Polish one. Frol. Archer systems. So Maria Bengtsson. Yeah, Sweden apparently has confirmed. So I already told you that these archers, they have been promised so many times that I don't even know. So until I see them, I don't believe it, despite them saying. And if you want to ask questions or anything, guys, just add at the at sign and write my name, the Ukraine Matters, and then we'll talk about whatever you say there. Is there any news on casualty? Has Ukraine fared somewhat better? Slava Ukraine. Okay, Raven 7, I'm trying to understand. So is there any news on casualty? Has Ukraine fared somewhat better? Do you mean, is the ratio of casualties higher for Russian than for Ukrainians? If that is what you mean, then yes. Ukrainian side is claiming that the ratio is about 1 to 10. I tend to be a little bit more skeptical. So I'm assuming that it's about 125 to 127. Lol, kick send by mistake. Meant to say not too far from where you are. Ah, perfect. I mean, who are you from where are you? as funny as it sounds. Sub-Hero. Solidar, Siversk direction. Will a potentially fall a Solidar cause a domino Siversk? No. No. Oh, Sub-Hero, were you the one that I explained that this is not the same as Popasna? That Solidar is not the same as Popasna. That the situation is completely different. Like when Ukraine was defending the I mean, like, there's so many variables to talk about, but basically right now the front line is fixed. Solidar is not a critical point that starts domino. Like Popasna was a critical point because it allowed for encirclement of Lysychansk. It's not the same thing. I know what you mean, though, that it opens the potential for encirclement of Bakhmut. Fair enough, but Bakhmut is not end all be all. So it's like, and besides, Bakhmut is huge. So it's actually there. Like, a lot of people are saying that's actually might not be as beneficial for the Russians just to take Solidar. They actually would need to add a lot of effort to then encircle Bakhmut. But we'll talk about this a little bit later. How is weather developing in Ukraine to launch an offensive? Roman, I've talked in my video recently about the fact that Ukraine might have delayed the offensive. The weather right now is good. The ground is solid. There has been videos of tanks rolling through the fields, no problem. Ukraine manufactures its own shells now. True. And Russia is cutting down on their shell use. So we might see a benefit to that. But overall, both parties are kind of a little bit short on shells. Okay, let's go. Wildcat, what do you think about Laserpick Gonzalo debate? I mean, call it a debate is a stretch. Like, it was a dishonest conversation, and to be honest, like, for me, everything was clear. Like, when Destiny left, I was about 5 minutes already out of that discussion. And to be honest, for me, kind of the main point, the killing point, it was like the stupidity of Gonzalo Lira completely came out, was like when Destiny asked, like, can you define good? And then he says, like, the good is the opposite of evil. Okay. And then Destiny asks a follow-up, can you define evil? And then he says, it's the opposite of good. I mean, like, that's it. That's. I mean, what else can you say after that? It's a complete nonsense. It's not a discussion. It's not any kind of intellectual. I mean, like, it's just stupid. I mean, even spending word discussing that, just how stupid it was, is giving it more credit than it deserves. Grats to Laserpig for having the, how do we say, the inner strength to be able to persist despite everything. Holy shit. Like, he has some really tough ability, like really strong abilities to hear through nonsense. I've heard things about Wagner wearing Ukrainian uniforms. Do you know anything about it? Yes, they take shoes, they take uniforms. I mean, that's not a big secret. It's been all around. It's, I think, since for the first months of the war, or like at some point Wagner was starting taking pictures, they started noticing that pieces of Ukrainian uniforms, like gloves, boots, and so on, were starting to appear. So that's kind of the thing. Glory to Ukraine, indeed. Taz, even weather is on our side, freezing up Russians in their land. That's true, but I mean, yeah. I think the offensive, Sub-Hero, I think the offensive would be better delayed in any case with the coming capabilities of IFVs and tags, baby. Yes. I mean, Sub-Hero, here you actually are so on point, and I will definitely talk about this. Level 70. Ooh, and it jumped somewhere. Level 70. Does Surovikin Surovikin's demotions mean we will see less attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure? Wait, Surovikin got demoted? What? When did Surovikin got demoted? Oh, yeah, it's an hour ago, actually. 20 minutes, hour ago. Okay, I just came home, so I actually might have just skipped this news. Wow. Russia's General Armageddon demoted amid huge battlefield losses. I'm just gonna show this. Oh, okay, sorry. Window. There we go. Much better. There we go. So Russia's General Armageddon demoted amid huge battlefield losses. What you say? Interesting. Well, what can I say, guys? I guess Russia is not doing that hot. So all of the pro-Russian bloggers or whatnot have been basically, saying that things are looking up so much, and I actually have an idea why this is happening. So we remember that this wave of setting the Surovikin up as a commander of this whole operation, setting up Wagnerites, setting up like this, how do you say, with a lot of dismissal to the armed forces of the Russian Federation, was essentially props for the Wagner forces. It was when Kadyrov and Prigozhin said, "Oh, can you put Surovikin? He's so good. He's now in charge. We're gonna fix everything. We're gonna defeat Ukraine so much. We're almost already took Bakhmut." And at that moment, there was, remember rumors about the fact that they had some dates by which they needed to take Bakhmut or make any notable victories. And what it is all came down to. They are fighting for the town that consists of a couple of holes in the ground, couple of hundreds of kilometers of underground trenches, tunnels, and like couple of residential buildings. Like it's a 10,500 people before the war village. And they are claiming that they took it and they didn't. And then they spent over 2 weeks actively attacking that settlement. And then they also require that there is also going to be an army presence, and it's not going to be just Wagner doing. I mean, that's a disaster. That's a complete disaster. So the takeaway from this that we need to take is that Russia cannot fix its system. Russian system is unfixable. It's not. It's like there is just no chance to fix it. The army needs time and recouping of strengths just to start, more or less operating. Whatever they're having right now, putting anyone else in charge, coming up with all these fancy names, whatnot, is not fixing the Russian military system. I'm going to skip questions about tanks, guys. We're going to talk about tanks in a separate section right after this. Hi from Portugal. Oh no. Awesome HPT. Hi from... No. Next one. Marco Casinha. Hi from Portugal. I read that Russia is shelling 75% less during the summer. Yes. Does this mean that they're just sending man waves to conquer the towns? Yes. Can be sustainable. It's going to be another section. We're going to talk about this. I have things to talk about those. Some good, some bad. Oh. We have a super chat. JBL. Putin, thanks for 10 pounds. Putin's rebels are breaking themselves in Solidar Bakhmut for limited gain. They will implode once Ukrainians' counteroffensive starts. No hurry, let them carry on. Meanwhile, Kherson main move. Kherson is definitely not going to be main move. Kherson is unbreachable for Ukrainians. Like going over the river into Kherson, that's a no-go. It's a stupid move. It's a very, very disastrous, because then Ukraine basically will put itself into the same position that Russians were for during the summer. Huari, we'll grab a beer one day after all this over, for sure. You have helped me a lot with your videos. Hey, I'm glad I was helping you out. It's really, really appreciated. Really appreciate the kind one. Thomas Kermans. Hi from Rotterdam, Netherlands. What mobilization potential Ukraine still has? Quite a lot. Quite a lot. I've seen estimates that Ukraine has just a kind of just the men and like the military personnel, if without going into any kind of difficult reserves, they have 5 million. That's their mobilization potential. But if there is also going to be like a willingness and so on, it's going to be even more. So 5 million more, I mean. Debbie Clifton, thanks for 10 bucks. Hi from cold East Coast Canada. Not as cold as Russia. Thanks. How do you think that Russians would react if the Polish moved into a defensive position in the northern Ukraine to block Belarus? I know the odds are zero if it's happening. I mean, the odds of zero are the odds of it are zero. So I don't know how they would feel. Cold, probably cold. They would feel cold. Me. How do you think the Russians are supplying their troops when they advance in those fields south of Bakhmut? I'm always wondering how did they get the ammo in all of those fields. I have the answer to it. I will talk about this later, me. If you will not be here, watch in replay. I will actually I have it as a section. Taz. So did Wagner made photo in salt mines outside of Solidar or inside of it? As far as I'm aware, it's the salt mines inside Solidar. I'm pretty sure it's the salt mines inside Solidar. So I don't understand why people keep denying it. It's quite obvious that the picture is real. So I don't know. Like people really want to deny. There's like, oh, it's a gypsum plant, and then someone shows them. No, it's like literally it's the salt mine. This is the wall. Like it's like. And people's like, no, they cannot be in the salt mines. It's like, no, of course they can't. Like they've been attacking the salt mines. People were saying that they even took parts of it, and it's intense battles that's happening in Solidar. There's a good chance that they've took at least some entrances to the salt mines. I don't understand sometimes people that they just want to deny reality. Like people really care for their side, and I really care for Ukraine. I really want Ukraine to win, but I want Ukraine to win. You know, it's like in the real world. You know, it's like following the facts, following the actual situation on the ground. But it seems that sometimes people just want to like, you know, it's like, nope, not real, complete fake. No. It's like, no, it's like they show the picture. They say it's salt mines. Someone else finds a picture of the salt mines where it's like the walls are the same exactly. And then it's like, there you go. It's the same thing. And people still, no, fake, Photoshop. Russian army is shit. Yep, that is very true. Thomas Cummins, hi from Rotterdam. A lot of respect for you Ukrainian people. I'm not Ukrainian. What about the rumors that Putler is already deadly ill? Since the start of this war, Putin has had every sickness and illness that is available on this planet. So if you really like in that kind of thing, you can imagine that he is. That doesn't say anything about the current state of the war. Is the taking of Solidar a big thing from Russian perspective? Are they actually thinking that they're winning besides the territory they have lost? Yes, they've made a huge deal about taking of Solidar. They made a big narrative around it that it's a big deal. Russian propaganda can do that. They can spin like even the smaller victories. Moreover, that's pretty much how they've been operating for the last half a year. They've been looking at the smaller things, and it was backfiring at them. Whereas like the bigger things just went by because they didn't cover them. For example, remember Liman situation? Russians covered it a lot, and loss of Liman was really big problem inside of the Russian society because media made a fuss about it, because people said like, oh my god, Liman. However, in a strategic sense, Liman was important, yes, but it didn't really, you know, like completely destroy Russians or whatnot. Or it's like it was a major victory. On the other hand, the Kherson withdrawal went out kind of silent, and they focused more about the fact that our troops were able to escape. So, and Russian society just eat up the shit that was served to them, and they didn't bother that the Kherson was lost, despite it supposedly being the only regional capital that Russia captured during this war. So yeah, Russians eat up everything that they're given. So if the Solidar is indeed captured, which it might be, then it's going to be a huge propaganda victory for the Russians, because they made a victory out of it, because they don't have anything else to show. They failed everywhere else. What did they take? Pavlivka, under Vuhledar, where the whole squad also, like, what? Okay. Any good rumors from Kinburn split? I mean, it's the same thing. Kinburn split, I know there was like rumors that it's going to be captured, but there is no reason to capture it. Why? Like, it doesn't give you anything. Removing Russian assets, like some kind of air defense or whatnot on it, yeah, sure. Having like a special forces land, destroy, kill a couple of Russians, take a couple of prisoners, amazing. But like, to have it as a landing ground, no. I haven't heard much about Kadyrovites. Are they not as active as Ukrainian these days? I'm hoping to hear more about have become fertilizer in Ukraine. Well, some of them were, but otherwise, there is like right now a discussion in the Russian society that they were also basically, Kadyrovites are police force. They are not really like an army. They have been trained and they have the equipment to be essentially a police force. So they are standing behind the Russian lines and they're policing the Russian army that is actually doing the fighting. So whenever someone, for example, tries to run away because he's afraid of being nuked, not nuked, but like like getting a shell to the face, it's the Kadyrovites that take him in custody, beat him up, and explain to him that he should go fight. Scott Nagel, just 2 more minutes and we go. Scott Nagel asked, what would happen if NATO country transferred Leopards without German permission? I mean, I think the whole idea that Leopards were delayed so much is that everyone was waiting for German permission. I am pretty sure that at this point, it's not really a question. So it's a hypothetical question. It doesn't really matter. Can Ukraine capitalize on Russia's full involvement near Bakhmut, Solidar to open the front to the south? Ukraine doesn't have resources, no. I mean, not the fact that it's not having, it's complex, but no. The answer is no. Let's hope Russians are so stupid to attack Ukraine from the north. Yes, absolutely. Lots of winter camo, yeah. Check the CNN video clip at 1:30. Sorry, I really don't have the time today for today's stream. I can check after stream. Mousy, Denis Davidov shows video of Ukrainian military men capture civilian men on the streets to send to fight in the army. Do you know about something about such events? Denis Davidov shows videos of Ukrainian military men capture civilian men on the streets to send to fight in the army. Do you know something about this? Is it old? Is it new? It doesn't make sense because Ukraine doesn't have problem with recruits. There is plenty still of volunteers. I know people that are standing in lines. I know maybe not tens, but like over 10 people for sure that are still standing in line as volunteers, and they cannot get into army because there is no recruitment. There was like some capturing before, but it was like dropped and said that we cannot make service in the army as a punishment. That doesn't make sense. Like, if we want our army to be this great big army, we cannot make an image of the army as this. Maybe it was someone that they're just trying to capture, like military. Maybe someone like stole something or something. I'm not completely sure. Like, maybe like, because police force is also on the front lines, and sometimes it's the military that are on rotation that are helping secure the peace inside of town. So maybe it was something like this. I'm not completely sure of the context. I'm not sure that the video that you're talking about. Again, it's life. Life is weird. Sometimes things just get on camera that you would never believe happen. I thought since the invention of the dash cam, we know that everything that can happen. Yeah, Kadyrov Chechens are more like NKVD. Yes, correct. What is the ultimate goal of Russia in the short and long term? To stall. That's their short and long term perspective. What they're looking for, to stall. They don't have anything else. Putin is an opportunist. He's not a strategist. He doesn't know how to do strategy. And this is the last question before I go into tank discussion. So he's not a strategist. He's not looking to, multi-steps ahead. He's just looking for opportunities. He is good at understanding and playing the Western societies and so on. He's using the Soviet tactics. I'm pretty sure people have saw the clip from Kaya Kallas, where she describes the Soviet strategy for negotiations, like demand the maximum, don't give an inch, always threaten with everything, and then someone at the West side will finally break and then starts offering you something. And then by the end, basically you had nothing, but you demanded something, and then someone gave you something. And there you go. Now you have something where you had nothing before. So, and I'm pretty sure there's other like these kind of strategies or methods rather than strategies that Putin knows as a KGB agent. So he's just playing really well to that. So and he's been really good at it, because we were always thinking that he has some ideology, but he doesn't. He's just like looking at the moment and what he can get. He failed with strategically with the invasion of Ukraine. There is no possibility to win it. There are plans, and we know of their plans, but they're bad. None of their plans can work. That's the point. So his only chance is to stall, to either freeze the conflict, or someone in the West decides to break and give Russia something. That's pretty much it. All right. With this, we're going to close for now the questions. See if we can focus on the topic of tanks right now, and then if you have questions around that tanks, we're going to discuss them right now. So Poland and at least the last I've heard, Poland and UK have said that they are going to send Western style tanks to Ukraine. Why this is a big deal? First and foremost, over 10.5 months, we went from we're going to send non-lethal weapons to then we're going to send defensive weapons, whatever that means. And then we're going to send weapons that are not too lethal, to then finally, slowly but surely getting to tanks. Why tanks are important? Tanks are a key role in the combined arm operations that Ukraine and the combined arm warfare that Ukrainian army is waging. So with tanks being supplied, I mean, obviously the question of numbers exists, right? But that is completely different discussion. It's like, understand that we in Europe, like especially the last fear that people are having is the fear of nuclear button. And maybe it's not like some politicians, but it's also their electorate that are fearing of the nuclear button. And we followed Putin quite closely, and I explained to you, is like, nothing's gonna happen. Like, Putin is a coward. There is no gonna be any nuclear button or what. No, he has no answer. Putin made a mistake of escalating too fast. So he went from 0 to maximum right away. Sam W, thanks for 10 New Zealand, I guess it's bucks. It's dollars. Absolutely. Yes, so Putin escalated too fast. So at that moment, he lost any ability to escalate. Because he fired all of the precision missiles, he fired everything, he did the torture, he did the burning, he did the essentially the weapons of mass destruction, such as thermobaric weapons, such as like these incendiary munitions just firing in the cities. He does not have a place to escalate. And for nuclear weapons, he's already been said by pretty much every party in the world that it's a no-go. So we're stuck in a situation where we have this phantom fears, or in some politicians in the West, we had phantom fears for the last couple of months, where everyone else was just saying, come on, let's just get on with this. Like, Ukraine needs the tools to win. And the only thing was like, okay, no, we need to do this weird dance around this. I'm not going to point names. And finally, we have, so with tanks now being sent, we have both the Western-style artillery opened for deliveries for Ukraine, and they have the study programs, like the training programs. We have the Western-style APCs are now being delivered, APCs and infantry fighting vehicles being delivered to Ukraine. we have now the tanks. And this is the three parts that are extremely important for a combined air operations that Ukraine is doing. So it's the artillery that is helping from the range. It's the troops that are coming in to fire, and Ukraine didn't have any troubles with troops because there was enough people all the time. What Ukraine had the problem with is heavy arms. They didn't have enough. So now the APCs will be provided that would allow essentially to carry troops towards the front line and then support them. And also the tanks to be the spearhead to break through the enemy lines. Level 70, thanks for 14 bucks. Scholz has no longer excuses left to send tanks. Yeah, that's true. Like there is no more breaking. So from here on out, Ukraine has the full nomenclature that it needs to fight the war that Ukraine knows how to fight. So we will see, as these weapons are delivered, we will see the quality of Ukrainian troops improve and improve and improve and improve linearly. Sausage Gravity Biscuit, big fan. Finally, real armor. Love seeing the smart people in us. Slava Ukraine. Slava Ukraine, indeed, my friend. Thanks for 10 bucks. Alex Bernstein, you're misrepresenting the times. British are thinking about Poland wants to do it with two big caveats. Number one, German permission. Number two, others sending as well. I mean, yes, Alex, that's implied. That's implied. That's the point. Because Poland said, like, we're going to send tanks, but we want someone else to do it. Finland said, yes, we also want to send anyone else, and we also want someone to do it. And then Britain said, oh, we're also sending tanks. And then Germany is like, well, we couldn't send tanks because no one else was sending them. And now they don't have any more excuses. So I'm pretty sure that Germany will announce on around 20th of January when the Ramstein meeting will happen. That's where the Germany is going to cave in. Because right now Germany has no ground to stand on at all. But the point is, so from now on, whatever weapons Ukraine will get, like for example, like long-range missiles or airplanes or like wing missiles, like cruise missiles or whatever weapons else, is just gonna come on top of Ukrainian army. We are finally at the point where Ukrainian army can get full nomenclature and essentially be fully open to get the full scale of the tools to execute on their operations. And this is what Zaluzhny has been asking. Like, he didn't ask for planes, he didn't ask for cruise missiles. He asked, give me tanks, give me infantry fighting vehicles, APCs, and give me howitzers. Like, that's it. That's all I need. Because this is the word that he knows how to fight. So that is one thing, and that's why the tanks are such a big deal. That's why the mental block was so important to overcome. And that's why having finally at least the first couple of like tens of tanks go in is very important. And this is really good. So what's the problem with all of this? Well, it's slow. That's the only problem. Like, the only problem of everything that the West does in Ukraine is it's very slow. And here we're going to talk about the Russian mobilization and their attack potential. So we see slowly but surely Russia running out of ammunition. I don't, obviously, if you've seen Perun video, I don't expect Russians to run off ammunition that they will not be able to fire their artillery. Absolutely not. What is happening is that they do not have enough artillery and their logistics are not supporting enough of that to make any kind of a large-scale offensive, like the ones that we've seen in the early spring, to essentially execute on that. We know that right now Russia is stocking up on some of the ammunition because they want to do offensive. And Ukraine is saying that around spring, like mid to late spring, most probably Russia will go on this another offensive. And as I said, there is three options how Russia can go. Either from the north, either from like the northeast, or focus directly on the east. And then maybe try to take Donbass and such. The Ukrainian army is preparing for all of the scenarios. The problem with that is that if there is not enough ammunition left by that point, Russian army is going to be left in a situation where they cannot create this burned ground approach. They cannot just destroy everything before them and then send in the troops. Because the only other strategy that they were able to find that is working is sending in the squads of essentially the dead men walking, the zombie squads, or whatever you want to call them. There's still, I'm not sure, a name for this tactic. So here I'm going to answer the question that was asked a little while before about how do they even get supplies to the front line. So the big problem for the Russian forces became the artillery. The 155 millimeter artillery, which is a huge artillery, that whenever the Russian forces would come together, especially their armor and so on, and the concentration of their forces would come together, they would start getting completely obliterated by the 155 millimeter artillery of Ukrainians. Viva Ukraine! The Diddler, thanks for 20 francs. The Didier, sorry, not the Diddler, not the Didier, 1969, thanks. Yes, so what they said instead, okay, it's the Wagner strategy. Like this is mostly has been used by Wagner, by the prisoners. So they would cover up, they would have like some kind of like a base point where they would essentially go underground that you cannot reach their concentration with any kind of tungsten balls, missiles, like so, like a fortified position essentially. From there, they would start sending human waves. If you know what tower defense is, this is literally what Ukraine has been fighting for the last couple of months. What they're doing, they're preparing the waves of about 7 to 15 people. And those people are often not wearing, for example, ammunition. They are very, very essentially light moving targets. But they try to take as much ammo with them as they can. They usually would have a machine gun, an RPG crew, and a person with like a what is a flamethrower. Except it's not the World War II flamethrower that you think about. It's like a Russian flamethrower. It's called Shmel, which is like it throws a grenade and then it explodes with a lot of fire. Really, really big and explosive. It's like a thermobaric weapon prototype that became the TOS-2 or TOS-1, whatever. Doesn't matter. But the point is, it's this kind of a weapon. And they have this group. So they send this group, and then 15, 20 minutes later, they send in the other group. So the first group goes forward. If they encounter some kind of enemy positions, they go forward, whatever. And they have their checkpoints, like their route that they put on the map. If they get to the next checkpoint, they put like a piece of cloth, and then they tie it to essentially a tree, and then make some kind of defensive positions. And then they go forward onwards. When they encounter the Ukrainian positions, they try to start fighting, essentially advancing as much as they can, and they basically die. Then the next one comes in, and then also advances. While that is happening, the Wagners are observing the situation and noting where the Ukrainian forces are. So they are then adjusting the routes and sending additional groups in to undermine that Ukrainian positions. And those groups of 7 to 15 men that they are just sending, because if it's just 7 people, then 155 millimeter artillery becomes not very useful because it cannot hit the concentration of troops. They are not using really armored vehicles, right? So it becomes really expensive. A thing that can help you maybe is like, shells, like for the mortars, but this waves are happening like, over 16, 18 hours a day. How many shells exactly do you need to have? So it becomes really problematic for Ukraine. And I will get somewhere with this. Steve Horn, if Russians take Solidar and Bakhmut, will that give them the PR victory, the need to broker a peace deal? No, there is not going to be any peace deal. Russia is going to get kicked out of Ukraine. There is not going to be any peace deal, Steve. It's a myth. It's a myth that only exists in the Western media. It doesn't exist in Ukrainian sphere. Like, there is not going to be any peace deal. So what is happening essentially? They're trying to reduce the impact that Ukrainian heavy artillery is having. That's why lighter artillery is, for example, more useful. Something like mortar shells, something like 105 millimeter artillery, something like even like armored vehicles or tanks would be nice. Those have really big impacts because of the machine guns, because of their having the ability to mow down. But these human waves, problem with that is that Ukrainian, they don't have a lot of equipment. They're still struggling for that equipment. So they cannot have their lines fully fortified for having these waves of attacks being held all the time. And that is what allows Wagnerites essentially to advance further. They cannot take cities, but they can fight in some of the areas like Solidar, like smaller towns. So the problem with what I just described is that there are known cases that instead of prisoners, it was the mobilized that were sent to do this. And now you see where I'm going with this. So if Wagner's are essentially taking Solidar, and their theory that they can take ground by using these kind of tactics, then essentially whatever I was talking about, like bodies per meter before, is really becoming a thing. So Russia essentially might say, we don't have enough shells to do the firewall, but we can do the body wall. So they might essentially force the mobilized Russians into this kind of warfare, and don't even train them that much. Like, why would you need to train them? You don't need to. Just give them like a machine gun, a rocket, a missile, and like a flamethrower. That's it. Like, you don't even need to have armor. Just send them. And that's basically, that's kind of the scary part, because the only thing that can stop this, the only thing for Ukraine is let me put it this way: would this tactic work against a modern army? And the question is no. Absolutely not. Like, the modern weapons are just too powerful that they're able to essentially kill everything and everyone, and it's not really an issue. The problem is that Ukraine, and like, it would be nice. The problem is that Ukraine is not a modern army yet. Ukraine is fighting a war which is more akin to First World War mixed with Second World War, mixed with some small elements of the more modern warfare, like some of the drones. But that is a far fetch. So the only thing that Ukraine can stop these advances is if it gets enough weapons. And here we come into the problem with the Western parts. The West have not been preparing for this war. The West has been preparing for essentially the wars to be a very small scale conflicts where people would fight some kind of small terrorists, whatnot. There would be no massive scale assaults. So a lot of the weapons that the Western armies are having is precise weapons. And there are very few quantities. They don't have the massive quantities of shells. They have the, 500, 1,000, or a couple of thousand of Excalibur shells that you can destroy a very precise target somewhere. So Ukraine needs a lot of dumb ammo. Ukraine needs a lot of cluster munitions, whatnot, whatever. Because otherwise, as we've seen, if the mobilized are forced to do this, and I mean, remember rule number one, don't expect anything from Russians. So I'm not expecting that the mobilized will resist this. So they will be essentially the cannon fodder. And if they just continue being mobilized nonstop, then Russia can easily get a couple of millions of mobilized that you don't even have to train. You just need to train them for maybe a week, teach them how to use a gun, and then essentially send in human waves. That's the awful thing. Peter Gural, my family is from Zaporizhia and we already help Ukraine a lot. There is a small donations to make sure your channel stays in mainstream media. Hey man, like seriously, like those $5, instead of sending it to me and like sharing it to YouTube and whatnot, seriously, send it better to your family. I appreciate it a lot more. Like my channel, I thank you guys so much for supporting. But first and foremost, I'm here to get the ad revenue that YouTube is giving to all of the subscribers so I can send it over to Ukrainian army. And obviously a lot of the donations I'm also sending to Ukrainian army. So thank you so much. Appreciate it. But my channel is not dependent on the donations or the profits whatsoever. I'm working because this is how I fight this war. Like this is my also call. So thanks. But if you have the option, send these $5 to Ukrainian support, Ukrainian military directly. I would appreciate that a lot more. And write me about this. Enric Martinez, $20, 20 euros. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. So basically, we are now in a weird situation that Russia has found a way how to stall this war. Now, I already explained to you that this tactic, it doesn't seem that this can capture cities. Like we've seen in Bakhmut, that they were able to move essentially around very, very slowly, but it doesn't seem that they can capture cities with this tactic. At least they were not able to get through the Bakhmut at all. But maybe they can come up with something else. The problem is that this can stall a lot of time. So this can make the war drag on for a while. And Ukraine need a lot of weapons. And this is why the tanks are so important. This is why the supplies, for example, of cluster munition from the Turkey is so important. And I will talk more about what's the Ukrainian offensive and how the tanks will be useful and what moment. But let's take a break and let me talk with you guys a little bit because I've been talking way too much. So I would love to hear from you what you think of what I just said, critiques, whatever. Share your opinions and questions. John Staley, there is a rub. Modern warfare uses air power superpassing. Yes, Ukraine is missing active jets, making up with drones. Oh, if there would be jets, if Ukraine would have air dominance, then I mean, this war would be one-sided. If Ukraine would be able to assess air dominance, this would be so over. And this is actually how I think the war will end. Let's put it this way, if Ukraine will not end this war this year, then I'm predicting that Ukraine will just get air dominance and end this war next year max. Because if the air dominance exists for Ukraine, that's it. That's it. Russia is so done. Like, that's it. Share a link to donate Ukraine. Sure, absolutely. You should go to U24.gov.ua. It's official Zelensky made, essentially a donation fund for all things Ukraine. You can both find the humanitarian support projects, you can find the military projects, or is it only military? I think there was some humanitarian ones. But this is helping Ukraine a lot, and this is as trusted as can be. Just look at that guy's face. It's Zelensky. Ellie, any news on our Russian Federation closing its borders to demand and continue mobilization? I've heard rumors. I haven't heard confirmation of this yet. Yes, there are rumors speculating that Russia has closed its borders to the people of the conscription age. Not conscription, but military age. But I have not heard confirmation of this yet. So I'm waiting on this. Jonas BL3, any front in specific you believe the new tanks will be used for? Zaporizhia front line, the south. Absolutely the south. Subhero, how would Ukraine achieve air dominance? Air defense S-300 mainly is one of the things the Russians are actually doing pretty well. Yes and no, but the thing is that if Ukraine get, like, one of the biggest problems that Ukraine is having with the jets, they are not having a lot of the NATO-style missiles. So they will be able to essentially take on take on targets by using newer types of missiles and so on. So they don't have them so far. They do have harm missiles, which are actually quite good. They showed themselves quite nice. But overall, they just need new platforms to have better missile capabilities. As far as I've heard the analysts. I cannot talk names because when I was listening to analysts, he was spewing out names, and I'm afraid I just cannot recreate this. I'm going to Lviv next week. What souvenir should I bring you from Ukraine? Dude, don't bring me anything. I'm quite fine with whatever I have from Lviv. I have the best thing from Lviv that I need. It's the great memories of my time spent in Lviv. So, Bayraktar is still in action. It's a long story. It's a long story. The short answer is yes, but it's complicated. Bogdan, people seem to claim NATO countries do not deliver F-16s to armed forces Ukraine because they are not useful due to destroyed airport runways, but repairing runways is not that complicated. The problem with F-16, they needed like some specific types of runways. So the only way, like essentially how I see F-16s used in Ukraine is that they're being hosted from Poland. Did you see the donation of NASAMS from Canada yesterday? Yes, I did. It was very nice. The US alone has a huge stockpile of aircraft that could be made combat ready. Let's hope soon. That's another thing. Like you also asked about the missiles and air power, is that the number of airframes. We need to understand that like right now, Ukraine is running a very, very tight shift on these planes. If they would just have more frames, that will be just more possibilities. Isn't the best thing from Ukraine you have your wife? But she's not from Lviv. Röderbergis, I think one of the few really good things that may come out of this war is a strong new European solidarity. Just look at this chat. Whole Europe is cheering for Ukraine. Not just Europe, it's the world. One of the most weirdest comments that I heard at the start of this war, it was actually in real life, a person said to me, is that, you know, the world is now so divided, like that this is war with us. Like, and I was like, what are you talking about? Like the world is going to be the most united I've ever seen. And it was just the start of the war when there was a lot of the questions, you know, ifs and buts and whatnot. And now, I mean, the Western world is revitalized. Holy crap. Like, guys, literally, like, it seems we're finally starting to care. Like, both regular people started to care. Both politicians started to care about something besides, you know, like their money pockets and so whatnot. It's like we're being like reborn into this, like, wow, there are actually things in life that matter, you know, especially values. Like, wow, we forgot about our European values that so much, and it was like so much words on it, but so little like was really like, what is democracy all about? Like, who should protect democracy? We were so laid back. It's actually quite like, it's not even funny. We were so indulged in a lot of like infighting and culture wars and whatnot. And finally, it's like, I mean, like some places, mostly US, there is still culture war a big thing. But if you're looking at a big stage, at least the, how do you say, the, what is the external policies and external negotiations and so on in inter-country relationships, it's super, super uniting. China decided to go back into negotiations with Australia and the groups that they've essentially broken their problem, that they had really big issues with. China is turning away from Russia, and it's coming back into the fold. Mind-blowing. Just mind-blowing. I am really, really happy for the fact that we're bringing, like, but I'm also very, very sad that this is costing so many lives of Ukrainians, and we're doing everything so slow to support them. Mika Raska, those runway requirements are exact reason why Finland chose F-18 instead of H-16s in the 90s. Hornets as carrier fighters be more robust. Okay, yeah. I read a little yesterday about support from China for Russia is waning. Any insight on those politics? Yes, but I don't have the time to explain, Matthew. Maybe I will do next stream, or maybe I'll make a video for it, something. I don't know. I need to figure out how this. But yes, China is turning away from Russia. What do you thoughts on Pakistan sending aid? Have they done so previously? Of not, why now? Because Pakistan needs money, and the West is ready to buy the weapons that they're having. China, good question. Not today, China. Sorry. Uh, Greeks won. The internal rivalry between Russian army and the private groups really start showing. Yes, Russian army is going to get carved up into private groups and have some sort of civil war. It's a potential. Heard about the 40 HIMARS to Ukraine? No, sorry, RC. 40 HIMARS to Ukraine. What? 40 HIMARS to Ukraine. Fact check. Did Russia claim it destroyed 44 HIMARS? I guess it's something new, but I cannot Google it. Like, the only 40 HIMARS I found is that Konashenkov that says that he destroyed 40 HIMARS. All right. Last question. Monster Greg 11. It's beyond mind-blowing that there is still discussion of tanks of escalation post-Bucha. Yeah, I mean, like, Bucha was at the start of the war, man. Like, it's been, like, literally, what was it? May? Like, April, May? Like, at April, May, we found out about Bucha. And that moment, we still, like, okay, we cannot send lethal web aid and so on. Like, wow. And Steven Seagal, yes! Yes! I mean, Steven Seagal, the great HIMARS analyst. Holy shit. That's the guy that I trust. CJ, existential threats to your existence tends to help people see priorities. Yeah, that's true. That's true. But it's like, I wouldn't say that it's existential threat. I mean, it's a very important threat for us to face, but it's still. All right, back to the topic. So we ended up speaking about the fact that Russia is preparing to do the human waves tactics because they don't have anything else. Because Russian army is so bad, they cannot organize it. They cannot do professional army. They cannot do anything. So the only thing that they have is just to use bodies. Just to buddy, and just overwhelm. The problem is they cannot really like deploy all of these millions at once. They need to be trained. Right now, the training capacity of the Russian force is about 250,000 men. And let's say they're being trained for like 2 weeks each, something like this. But they still need to be dressed, whatever. So we can expect that with the equipment and so on, they can prepare about 250,000 every quarter. Let's put it this way. So right now, we're expecting to have Russian offensive, maybe during the spring, and have additional 250,000 that they will call in right now as a new mobilization. Our civilian 40 HIMARS, I don't know, I haven't heard about this. But so we're expecting a lot of new manpower coming in for Russia, and this will stall. The problem with this is, this tactic that Russia is having works only if Ukraine cannot break them. The problem that Russia is having is that if they don't train their troops and they will just send them on the front lines, then these troops will not know how to fight. And even in defense, this might lead for troops to essentially rout and be devastated. That's why if Ukraine has massive enough fist that can punch through some of the lines that are well prepared and defensive, then after that we can see essentially a situation of Kharkiv repeating. Even despite, for example, the general numbers of the Russian troops, like the capacity to man these lines quite big, if the fist is big enough, then Ukraine can break through. So far, Ukraine has not had such a big power. They were able to exploit weaknesses inside of Russian fortification because the Russians have quite a weak defense lines. It was, quite, how do you say, sparse. But after the mobilization, they were able to man up some of those defense lines. And at that moment, the fact that you don't have enough force to make a proper breakthrough, to essentially subject the enemy to your will aggressively with enough force, the Ukraine understood at that moment that they just didn't have the resources necessary. That's why coming tanks are such a big deal, because it's a part of the offensive force, of the offensive fist that is the combined arms. And with more and more tanks coming in, even if there's going to be like 100 or even 200 tanks that we would get, hopefully by summer, that's a dream scenario. Most probably we're going to get around 70 to 100. But even if there's 100 tanks, it is still a lot. Like 100 tanks. Besides, understand this. It's NATO tanks that we're talking 100. We need to understand that also the Soviet tanks are being sent. But the thing is, Ukraine is preparing like a proper fist. They are trying to essentially overcome this dense, fully equipped Russian line, but that is existing in the not very proficient troops. Because before there were obvious weaknesses. Right now, they need power to enforce their will. And that's why the tanks are so important. And that's why Ukraine is fighting. And I promise that I will explain the scale for you, like what's the difference. So normally, by essentially the norms of like a common warfare, like think about like post Second World War, whatever, big war. A brigade, a battle brigade, should be able to essentially hold steadily the defense line on the front for about 25 to 50 kilometers. So the sector of the front line that one brigade should be, don't worry about how much brigade is, just bear with me, like you will see. So one brigade of force should be able to handle that kind of force. But around Bakhmut and Solidar, the concentration forces is so high that one brigade can barely at their best hold 10 kilometers. Like, and they are trying really hard, like doing completely unimaginable. That's the concentration of the Russian forces in the area that we're talking about. It's more than 7-1. It's more like towards 8-1 and so on that Russia is using in that area. Like if we're talking body numbers. And they're using these tactics that's, how do you say, that make a lot of precision weapons ineffective that Ukraine has gotten. So Russians are also adapting and so on. But we'll see what's going to happen. The delivery of tanks is super important for this reason. And that's why I think that Ukraine decided, even if they planned some kind of offensive in the winter, I think this is something I've actually heard from the analysts. This is not my words. I would be lying if I'd say. So that's why the offensive in the winter was postponed to a later date. How long it would take to victory without Western tanks? To be honest, I'm not sure there would be a victory without Western tanks. Okay, let's put it this way: in any sensible scale, the victory without Western tanks would be problematic. While Russians would not be able to capture Ukraine and win, Ukrainians also killing all of the Russians. I mean, at some point, Poland would supply some of the ammo, and at some point, I guess Ukraine would grind, but it would be years. We're talking almost like multiple years. Multiple years. All right. Coming back to your question, sorry. You were a little bit distracted while answering my question as about supply of Russian of those killing fields in the south of Bakhmut. Big thank you. Thanks for reminding me. So the supplies, the supplies of getting, remember when I told you that they pack as much as they can ammunition. So for example, they don't take their armor vests for this, and that's how they're supplying. They literally are coming in small groups. If you're talking about the front line, the most front line, and they're carrying as much ammunition as they can. So when they finally reach some kind of positions, the only thing that they can to get more weapons to them, they just need to loot the bodies, because the bodies have the weapons. And if you're talking about how to supply the weapons towards these points, they're mostly doing like single trucks or multiple trucks. And their weapons, they're being stored right now under civilian buildings. They don't store it in large facilities. Russia has adapted to the HIMARS a bit. It would be unfair to say that they didn't. They did. But we saw how that ended up in Makivka with over a couple of hundred deaths. Like I think it's more like 400 probably. So I hope this explains it. If not, then make your question again and I will explain detail. Kellen Dunn, to get to Crimea or Melitopol, Ukraine needs Western tanks and at least mid-range missiles. Do you agree? I mean, Ukraine has already has mid-range missiles. Unless you mean mid-range missiles like 150 kilometers. Yeah. But those were already in discussion, right? It's the ones that are Boeing producing. If you had choice, tanks or jets? Tanks. Definitely tanks. I explained that tanks are integral part of the Ukrainian fighting units. Not fighting units, but doctrine, fighting doctrine. While jets would be strengthening that doctrine, this is a land war primarily. Their current air assets that Ukraine has allows for air to be contested, so Russia cannot freely use their air power. So Ukraine having a stronger land power would be more beneficial, I think. Are there any examples of data or British hash rounds in actual combats? Okay, what is hash round? Let me Google that. High explosive squash head. I mean, I don't know. Maybe this looks like very specific to the essentially the combat, like in military powers. Try asking Animarchy History or the Chieftain. Probably they will know better. Derek Conquest, will the tanks only be enough without close air support? I mean, for a proper offensive, there should be F-16s, I believe. No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. Ukrainian doctrine allows for that. If Ukraine wants to become and fight like NATO, then yes. But Ukraine doesn't fight like NATO. Ukraine fights like Ukraine. Kellendan, do you think Ukraine can blow up most of the underground tunnels and they retreat from Solidar? No chance. No, absolutely not. Okay, the last couple of minutes, guys, of the stream that I need to bail out. When will the mud season usually end in spring? May-ish. May. The intercepted poll call says something about 630 or 610 dead. Christoph Kohn, yeah, it was, but I didn't see conversation. It's like conversation, yes, but it's like he said, she said, so I didn't have proof of that. But there was a lot of that in Makivka for sure. Why aren't they thinking about sending tanks but still not sending 300 kilometer GMLRS? I don't understand. It's not a GMLRS missile. It's ATACMS missile, 300 kilometers. And it's going to come at some point. Don't know. It's Phantom Pains, Phantom Fears, whatever. Captain Blackjack Honor. With the GBU kits coming, do you think the A10s could actually be viable now? As far as I've heard, and my knowledge of the A10 effectiveness is limited, but as far as I know, A10 require full air dominance to be used effectively. It's essentially like a helicopter. And we see that Ukrainian helicopters are not doing close air support. Kevin, do you think Russia will massively bomb civilian infrastructure this week? It will bomb civilian infrastructure at some point. No one in particular. Can you give me a summary of Ukrainian battle doctrine and tell me if it's compatible to combined arms doctrine? I mean, it is combined arms doctrine. It's just not the one that is being used by NATO. Thank you. That was exactly what I wanted to know. So they personally carrying food and ammo to the front line. Yes, crazy on this condition. Slav Ukraine. Yeah, it's literally like this. They're just carrying them themselves. All right. Who's gonna get the last question? And then I'm gonna be signing off, guys. Thank you so much in advance for this first stream, this fast stream. I will do more videos, maybe even another stream this week. We'll see. It's been kind of busy, actually. Okay, and the person getting the last question is Krasen. The GLSDB with range of 150 kilometers, yes, will arrive in the first quarter of the year. Can be used with HIMARS like GMLRS. Correct. Basically, what they did is saying, hey, we have some of these bombs, and we have these GMLRS rockets that are like, there's a thruster part. Why don't we have this like thruster part put on this like missile, and then like they poo, and then it flies really fast and far, and it's really nice. And it was like, whoa, great idea, Boeing. There you go. That's I'm pretty sure that's exactly how it went. 100%. Sub-Hero, 10 Bulgarian. What was the currency Bulgaria? Was it lei? Or lei was in Romania? Thanks for the nice stream and answering my stupid questions. It's what's not stupid, my friend. No questions are ever stupid. Thank you so much for asking them. Yes, thank you so much, guys, for the stream. As again, I don't know. What do I say? Thanks. Just thanks. Thank you for keeping tabs. Thank you for supporting Ukraine. Thank you for not allowing this very important war for us, for our sake, for our security, to not fade into the second news cycle, despite the 10.5 months of effort. So huge thanks. Love you all. And I guess I see you guys next time. Leva. It was Leva, for sure.